Welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin, and this is a custom video for Lee. He writes, "Hi Austin, love your videos and especially look forward to your watch shopping ones. I have attached a picture of my current collection. I also have a rolled gold Navi timer that was my father's, but that's away in a safe." And he wrote me back later and explained a little bit about this little Omega Seamaster. He wrote, "The small dress Omega Seamaster was my grandfather's, found years after he passed, broken in his toolbox. I had it repaired by a local watchmaker." Wow, what a cool watch to have. He's got his grandfather's watch, he's got his father's watch, and they're both really good watches. The Navi timer, that's a Breitling gold watch, and he has his grandfather's Omega. So those have to be incredibly special, and they're just good watches, period. It's always good to have a grandfather's watch, a father's watch, but when it's a good watch, it's that much better. And it makes them easier to take care of and look after, because if you're left with a watch that you might call a shitter, then oftentimes watchmakers will turn them away. They don't want to work on them. They don't want to put the time in for a watch that they know isn't worth what they're going to have to charge you for. And so one of the good reasons why you might want to put your money in a good wristwatch is to give your heirs something that they can have that lasts and that can be taken care of and that people will want to take care of. People will always take care of a Rolex. They'll always fix a Rolex. They'll always want to keep it going and get it going. And that's because it's got value outside just the sentimental value. But you've got some great family heirlooms there, Lee. And talking about the Speedy in the picture at the bottom, I asked about that, and he said, "The Speedy was my first purchase. Everyone always asks, Heltzolite or sapphire, and I found the best of both. I love this piece." And he sent this picture, and you can see it's got a Heltzolite front, sapphire display back. That's a very interesting watch. And you've got, the sort of the traditional look and traditional Speedy in the front, and in the back you get to enjoy the look of the movement and the display case back, and that's great. And a lot of people say the Heltzolite manual wind Speedmaster is the way to go, and I guess I would agree. But what I really like is the sapphire sandwich. Yeah, it's not going to have the Heltzolite glass, but it's going to be stronger. It's not going to scratch. And it's not traditional. All right, that's fine. But you get to see the movement in the back, and that's got to be a joy. I mean, for a Rolex guy, that would be pretty special to be able to see the movement. So that's an awesome piece as well. Let's look at some other aspects of this collection. So starting on the left, he's got a no-date sub, and you can barely make it out, but you can see the engraved rehaut. And so this would be a 14060M, and this would be a late 2007 Z serial or later. So it would be a M or a V or a G, or because they stopped making this watch in 2010, in 2011 they started doing the random serial numbers. And so if some random serial numbers made it onto the 14060M, then that would be very special, and that would be a very special last of the last 14060Ms. So it would be interesting to know, Lee, what serial that is. And then to the right of that, a date sub, a ceramic date sub, that's the 116610, the recently discontinued, and it's come out in its new form, the 126610, and this is a great watch to have. The Fat Boy case, that could become collectible in the future. That's awesome. And then he's got a ceramic GMT 116710 LN, excellent piece, discontinued, a lot of potential there. Went up really high for a while, and it's dipping now. We're in the period where if you want that watch, you should get it. So I would hold on to that watch, definitely. You've got your GMT. You've got another GMT to the right of that. That's an Explorer 2. That's the 42 millimeter. And that's a good one to have. Of course, I prefer the 40 millimeter, but this is a great modern watch to have, and this would have the newest movement. And what is this? The 126570. And then to the right, Omegas, all right? And we've got, it looks like a Seamaster, and then to the right of that, another Seamaster. And then the watch we're going to talk about today, which is on the chopping block, this Tudor Chronograph. Beautiful collection. I love this collection. These are my kind of pieces. No gold in this collection, no two-tones, no precious metal, no diamonds, no dress watches, except for his grandfather's watch. You know, but it's right up my alley. This is a collection that I would love to have, and I would love any of the pieces from this, because they're steel, they're usable, they're professional. They've got either rotating bezels or informational bezels. Fantastic collection here. And he writes, "It is really diver heavy, but I like the fact that I can wear and not worry rain or shine." Exactly. The usability of steel professional watches is what I love. I do have one piece, however, that although I love it, I find it really hard to read. Small, skinny hands against the white dial. We're talking about that Tudor Chronograph. So small, skinny hands against the white dial, and the chrono hands are almost black on black subdials. Genius, he says sarcastically. I nearly, and I'm glad I didn't, traded this, which is a Tudor 79280, for an Omega Constellation Globe Master, but in the end couldn't do it. That's interesting. I think money-wise, you might have been a little bit better off with the Constellation Globe Master, but I don't know if I would have made that trade. You seem to like watches that can go in water, and that's a watch, I want to say, that has a leather band. Yeah, I don't think it would have been a bad trade, but I think possibly we can think of some better options. My issue is that it's not an easy watch to read for me. So wrist time is rare, and I figure maybe it's best to move it on for another piece, but I'm torn what to get in its place. It would need to be a dressy, or at least a more dressy piece. No more divers, but still good water resistance. Okay, so yeah, that's why the Globe Master, while the head of the Globe Master would be fine, I think the bracelet or the strap would be the issue there. All right, now you're a dive watch guy. You're like me, like your informational bezels, but you think you need a dress piece. And yeah, I can understand that, because you probably don't want to break out your grandfather's watch if something happened to it. You know, that you just wouldn't be comfortable wearing it. I can understand it. So you just want something maybe you can put on with a suit. And I would let this go. Now, sometimes I just want to go off on a small tangent and just say that sometimes we keep watches because we think of the investment potential. But if you're not wearing a piece and you don't like it and you're not enjoying it and you're just keeping it because you think of the potential in the future, well, look, you could put that money in a watch that holds that much value just as much, okay? But also turns you on, that you would want to wear, that you would actually enjoy. And think about it, you might have to have a watch that you're just holding serviced. And how are you going to feel about that? You don't even like wearing it, yet something's wrong with it. So before you sell it, you have to service it. So these things are not like, you know, a gold bar. They don't age well. They need taking care of, okay? And we have to kind of fuss over them more than gold or silver, whatever tangibles we're talking about that we tend to tuck away. And so because of that, if you don't like a watch, I'd say get rid of it, all right? The real balance is finding a watch that you love and you love to wear and you probably want anyway, no matter what it was going to do in the future value-wise. But then also it has that bonus of being potentially collectible or holding its value at the very least. And so that's the sweet spot, all right? And you don't need to choose, especially if you like Rolex watches. You don't need to choose, because you can find plenty of options that both retain their value, but also are very wearable. So any help greatly appreciated. Budget around 5,000 to 8,000 British pounds, including the trade value of the Tudor, which is currently trading for about 3,000 pounds. Or would you advise keeping the Tudor? No, I wouldn't advise keeping the Tudor. You're not enjoying wearing it. You don't really like it. And you're just going to have to pay service costs in the future if you hold on to it. Do I think there's a lot of investment potential when it comes to that watch in the future? I really don't. If I had to bet, I would say no. We don't know for sure, all right? But I have a feeling not. Let me just talk a little bit about this, because sometimes we look at watches and we think, okay, well, is this watch going to be collectible? Now, we look to the past, and all steel professional Rolexes are collectible, period. They've gone up, tons. And if you bought in the past, pretty much no matter what you bought, you're doing great. But especially if you bought the lemons, because the lemons weren't popular, the lemons weren't selling, Rolex wasn't probably making a lot of them, or they made less of them, and then they ended them soon, and that made the lemons rare. And I'm talking about lemons like the 1655, the very first Explorer 2, the very first Milgauss. I'm talking about the very first Daytonas. Nobody wanted those. And so while you look at something like a 5512, it's selling for quite a bit more, but there are a lot of those. That was a hugely popular watch. And so you look at those, quote, lemons, and there's just less of them, and that's what makes them so collectible, and what makes them sell for such a premium. But people look at current and modern watches, and we hone in on the lemons and think, oh, that's going to be popular in the future because those lemons were, these lemons will be as well. We look at the Tudor P01, we look at the North Flag, and we think, I think there's a lot of investment potential. I think they're going to go up in the future. I disagree with that. I think we've hit a stage where everybody's looking for the, collectible watches of the future. And when it comes down to it, the watches that will be collectible in the future are the watches that are collectible now. And I'm talking about the subs, the GMTs, the steel sports watches. The ones that are selling for a premium now and are going up are the ones that are going to continue to go up. All right, I don't think we're going to see these old Tudors, and that goes for the Hydronaut as well, and possibly the Iconaut, though that's a little bit different because it's just so odd and different, and there's nothing that really compares to it. But I would be surprised if that went up as well. All right, but for the most part, I think the ones that are going to be the collectible ones in the future are the ones that we know are collectible now. All right, and so I don't think this is one of those watches. I think you can get rid of it and not worry about the future. But we don't know. We don't know. What should he get? Well, let me just finish his email. He says, also, would like your honest thoughts on the rest. Would you swap out any? If so, what for, if it were your collection? Okay, well, I mean, look, it's just a personal thing, but I would rather have a 40 millimeter Explorer than a 42 millimeter Explorer. But should you do that? Absolutely not. I mean, this is a great Explorer too. And honestly, I wouldn't trade out anything. Definitely not the GMT, definitely not the sub, either sub. I wouldn't do anything. As far as the Omegas go, I wouldn't do anything there either. I think it's perfect. I would just add to it. And yeah, it's a fantastic collection, so thumbs up. Now, you've gotten rid, or you're going to get rid of the Tudor. What should you do? Well, you want a dressy piece that can withstand water. So let's talk about some options with Rolex first, and we'll kind of work our way up. Now, there's the OP, all right? And the OP goes with everything. That would definitely work with a suit, and it's water resistant. But the OP, even the new ones, it just doesn't get the respect that some other watches do. So to go out of your way to buy one, look, if you love it, it's fine, but people just tend to kind of look down on it because it's just so, as they call it, entry level. It's unfair, but it's just a reality. There's the Milgauss. That would work okay with a suit. I knew a guy that wore a green glass, the GV glass black dial Milgauss with a suit, and it always looked just okay, all right? The green glass just didn't look that great. So I would avoid that, but it does look kind of fancy because it has the polished center links. Now, there's always an Explorer, okay, but again, you could go more dressy, all right? And so I would avoid those options, but they're there. And I would think about a Datejust. Now, should you get the fluted bezel Jubilee braceleted Datejust? A lot of people would say yes, because that's the iconic style. But you like sporty things, and you could also save a buck as well. It'd be a lot cheaper to get the smooth steel bezel and the oyster bracelet, and that's a beautiful configuration. It's sporty, totally dressy, would go great with a suit. Would be, it's a sports watch, but it just kind of it looks dressy. And if it's the Datejust, it would have the polished middle links, so that would give it more an air of fanciness and a little bit more bling, if you will, versus something like an OP or an Explorer. So I would seriously consider that. You could also look at some cool dial styles. The blue dial is beautiful, so I would consider that. If you don't want to go Rolex, I can't imagine why you wouldn't, but if you wanted to go Omega, you could look at their Aquaterras, and those are really nice. And the Aquaterra is a trendy, not trendy, I don't want to use that word because it might sound like it's going to go out of fashion, but those have like a classic look, but also sort of a contemporary look. And they're really nice. They're almost a little bit more fashionable than the Datejust that I mentioned, but I think it's much more fashionable than a fluted bezeled Jubilee bracelet Datejust, which I'm beginning to think those might be, unfortunately, a little bit outdated looking. I think, look, we love it and we want to love it, and again, it's the iconic style of the Datejust, so really to say anything against it is almost a sin. But I really think that the oyster bracelet smooth bezeled Datejusts are just so much better looking this day and time, because there's some serious old man vibes going on with the Jubilee braceleted fluted bezel Datejust. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but there's a little bit of grandpa there, all right? And as iconic as it is, I'm not sure if I'm quite as down with it. So, yep, there you go. Now, those are some sort of conservative options, all right? Now we're gonna get a little bit crazy here, and I'm just gonna say that you love your rotating bezels, you love your sports watches, so you could get dressy in the type of material that is in the watch, and you could still have your dive watches and your professional watches. And I'm talking about a sub bluesy or a sub with a black dial with the two-tone, all right? Would I go that route? Probably not, okay? Because the bicolored watches just are a little bit too much for me. I think they're just, they stand out a little too much. But it would be arguably a good watch for a suit, okay? And it would give you what I think you like, which is what I like, and that's the rotating bezel and the functionality of that and all that. So it's worth thinking about. If you want to go vintage, you could always go with a vintage root beer GMT, although is that going to look good with a suit? It's kind of, if you want to go for the, what is it called? I can't think of what it is, but the young guys who wear glasses and have the beards, actually it kind of looks like me, but wear the clothes. Anyway, I don't know, that subculture, and they dress like grandpa. All right, so if you wanted a dress watch and you wanted to go for that look, then maybe a vintage root beer. But again, am I seriously saying you should get that? Probably not. It's just kind of fun to think about. All right, now we get to the pinnacle of my choices, and the Yacht Master 40. You could go blue dial or the rhodium dial, which they've actually changed to the slate dial. Now, some people have talked about, is it just a name change, or does the dial actually look different? And apparently it looks slightly different. So goodbye rhodium dial, Yacht Master 40. Hello slate dial. So you could go with something like that. That would be, it's got the platinum bezel, beautiful polished parts, brushed parts. It's a fancy looking watch. it totally looks like a dress watch. But again, you've got the bezel, you've got the functionality there, and that would be a great choice right there. Now, you could also go with a discontinued chronograph, and there you have your Datejust, right, which is a dress watch, but you also have the rotating bezel. In fact, it doesn't look quite as good as a Datejust, to be honest. I think it's a big trade in terms of aesthetics to get that rotating bezel, but it doesn't look that sporty. It's sort of I guess a balance. That's what it's supposed to be between the dress watch and the sports watch. It's got the polished middle links, and I'm talking about the 6-digit version. You could go with a blue dialed one. You could go with a white dialed, which is probably one of my favorites. It really works well with the red accents. They've got a black dialed version or a gray dialed version. It's 36 millimeters. Again, it's going to really work well with a suit. The only thing is, when it comes to the blue dialed version with the red accents and the polished middle links, I look at that and I think, why would you do that unless you wanted a discontinued chronograph when you could go back to the 40 millimeter Yacht Master with a blue dial? Because you get the polished middle links, you get the rotating bezel, you get the red accents, the blue dial. It's just, that seems like the better option. But again, it's a sportier look, okay? And that's really the difference. I guess if you say, I just don't really want to avoid that sporty look, then you would go with a chronograph. So that's my real final choice, and I would say the chronograph or the Yacht Master. I would go with the Yacht Master because I would want that size. Some people would say, the chronograph because of the collectability of it. Again, is it collectible now? Not really. Will it be in the future? I don't think so, okay? It's going to hold its value, but is there going to be a run on chronographs in the future? I really don't think there's going to be, okay? So that's what I think. Viewers, let Lee know what you think. How do you rate my choices? What do you think? Yacht Master 40 with a blue dial. That's what I would choose. But let me know, viewers, what you think. Take care. Thanks for watching. Thanks again, Lee, for the video request, and I will see you next time.